Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Q120 from Neewer. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. For all of you who are back to Kevin Deal Photography, welcome back. And for all of you where this is your first time here at the beginning of every episode, I ask for donations too big. But to the subject of today's episode. So Neewer has been sending me a lot of flashes lately, and they've been really impressing me with their latest offerings. And this small Q120 is definitely making me curious. So it's a tiny little flash, 120 watt seconds. And it's compatible with Godox triggers, which is important because, yes, Neewer does make a Q series native trigger, but they also have compatibility with Godox triggers. I know a lot of you watching today's episode probably shoot in the Godox ecosystem, and Neewer offers less expensive alternatives that seem to be pretty feature rich and packed with a lot of really useful things. So I want to take this guy out into the real world. I want to test it out in my studio. I want to test it out in real world environments like environmental portraits. But before we get started on those real world tests, let's first go over the specs. The Neewer Q120 is a 120 watt second TTL 2.4 gigahertz strobe. It has a power control range of 9 stops. It has a recycle time of 1.5 seconds at full power. It has a built-in 3 watt modeling lamp. It has a maximum sync speed of 1/8000th of a second. It has manual, multi, and TTL modes. It's compatible with both Neewer Q series and Godox X series triggers. It can be controlled with the Neewer app. Its dimensions are 5.6 by 3.2 by 3.2 inches or 142 by 81 by 81 millimeters. It comes in at a weight of 1.5 pounds or 680 grams, and it comes in at a street price of $219 US. Okay, so I'm here in my studio to do a test. I have this Q120 right here, and I'm gonna do a test with his sibling, the Z3R, which I recently did a review of. You can check out a link to that in the description below or the card above my shoulder. But they work on the same ecosystem, and that gives me the opportunity to also tell you that they take the same battery, which is pretty awesome because if you have a Z3R and you have this new Q series light, and maybe you have one of their older flashes as well. So I have the predecessor to this, I believe it's the Z2 Pro, for Canon, and it uses the same battery. So I have 3 different flashes that can use the same battery, which is great. I did not bring my Q series trigger though, because you can use a Godox trigger. And so I brought my X3 Pro trigger because I wanted to test it out with these guys on my Lumix S1R2. And another thing is if you buy this flash, you probably want to get an S bracket for it. I'll leave a link in the description below for this Neewer S bracket. Godox makes them as well. A lot of companies make them like Flashpoint. But the reason why you might want to get this is, especially in a studio environment, maybe you want to use direct flash, and that's fine, but maybe you want to use a softbox, or maybe you want to use an umbrella. And that's the great thing about these S brackets. They're like $20, and they have a little hole in them for an umbrella, and they have the little 3 pins that you need for a Bowens mount. And that's exactly how I'm going to use this new Q series flash in today's session for a portrait session. So without further ado, let's get started. So you can see the skin tones here. The quality of light is actually really good on this Q120 strobe. As far as power, it kept up in my studio with my S1R2. Didn't have a lot of misfires. I ran the battery a little bit after a few sessions. So one of the cool things about it is you can plug it into USB-C. So I plugged it into my car as I drove to a portrait session downtown.
Okay, so I've arrived at my destination. It's kind of a flat day today, and I want to make sure that my subject stands out a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and illuminate my subject with this Q120. Now, you did see that I charged the battery in the car. Let's see what kind of difference just 30 minutes in a car charger makes. It was at 50%, and now it's at about 75%. So in about a half an hour, I got about a quarter of the power back. I was concerned that I might drain it down from half to zero. Now I'm at 75%. I think I'll make it through this session just fine. And another thing I want to do with this light is I want to make sure that we're not too harsh. We just want to liven up the subject a little bit. So Neewer was kind enough to provide this cool little magnetic diffuser. So I'm going to be shooting with this magnetic dome diffuser in today's session, and let's just see what kind of shots we can get.
So we've used this Q120 in the studio, we've used it out in the field on environmental portraits. So now let's go back to my studio and let me tell you how I feel about it. All right, so I've used this strobe in a wide range of scenarios out in the field, with a diffuser, without a diffuser, in the studio with an umbrella, in the studio with a softbox, and even with a gobo projector. At this point, I have a pretty solid idea of how it performs. Let's start with the areas where I think Neewer could have done a little better. While the included magnetic dome diffuser is a nice touch, its actual effectiveness is minimal. If you're hoping it will soften your subject, that simply wasn't my experience. It does provide an omnidirectional spread, which can be useful when you need the light to scatter in all directions, but it's not a substitute for a real softening modifier. You also lose about a half a stop of light with the dome attached, and the shadow transitions barely change at all. So if your goal is softer light, bring the proper modifier. This dome will not get that job done. Neewer also gives you the option to view power in fractions, but their biggest competitor, Godox, lets you switch between fractions and whole stop numbers. ProPhoto uses whole numbers as well. I really wish Neewer would push a firmware update across their lineup to add whole number power readouts. That's how I prefer to read the power. While this light boasts that it is 120 watt seconds, I honestly don't care about that extra 20 watt seconds versus the competition. If you gave me the choice of having this light in its current form at 120 watt seconds, or take it down to 100 watt seconds like this Godox AD100 Pro 2, but I get to have this Neewer with a slightly smaller footprint, I would elect to take the smaller footprint. Let me explain why. If you're familiar with the Godox AD series, many of their smaller lights include notches that allow secure direct mounting to certain softboxes like those from Angler without the need of an S-bracket. The Q120 does not have those notches. Additionally, because the main part of the chassis gets larger, it may not allow the head of the unit to fully see into many models of magnetic softboxes. So if you're hoping to use an Angler style softbox, you may want to study the specs first. It appears the results here may be inconsistent. Even if your softbox is compatible, the head of the unit lacks the notches to further secure your light. You may be better off buying an S bracket and rely on the Bowens mount instead. Not a deal breaker, but Neewer should at the very least add the notches in future versions. All right, that's it for the cons. Now let's talk about the pros because there were quite a few. The fixture is extremely easy to use. If you're a beginner intimidated by flash, the interface is pretty straightforward and approachable. Everything you need is usually no more than a couple of clicks away, and the most critical controls have dedicated buttons. The quality of the light is fantastic. I didn't notice any weird color shifts, and the quality was consistent. I used this strobe with multiple modifiers and consistently got beautiful results. It's powerful enough to use without a hard reflector on an overcast day, and with a reflector, it's strong enough for full sunlight. Add an S bracket and you unlock a huge ecosystem of Bowens mount modifiers. There are also third-party magnetic accessories available. Between brightness, color accuracy, and modifier compatibility, this light checks a lot of boxes. I also love that it works with compatible Godox triggers. Just change one setting on the back of this light and then match your group and channel and you're good to go. Many of you already own Godox triggers, so not having to buy into Neewer's Q series trigger system makes this light even more appealing. Which brings me to value. This light is essentially Neewer's answer to the Godox AD100 Pro 2. It's a bit larger, but the power is similar and it's almost $100 cheaper. Knowing it works with your existing Godox triggers gives you a more affordable alternative without sacrificing light quality. In this economy, that matters. From a marketing standpoint, well, you tell me how similar the lights are. No, I did not make that video. I lifted it off their respective YouTube sites, and if the marketing company who made that video got paid twice, work smarter, not harder. From what I can tell, Godox put out their video first, but both lights appeared to be released in January of 2026. They do share a lot of the same specs when you put them head to head, but the similarities really stop there. Side by side, the Q120 is noticeably thicker and longer. It weighs 1.5 pounds compared to 1.2 pounds with the Godox, though in the hand, the difference is subtle. The Q120 is rated at 120 watt seconds versus the Godox 100 watt seconds. Neewer gives you 420 full power flashes per charge, and the Godox gives you 490. Godox gives you color-coded LEDs on your light that match the color on your trigger. Neewer does not. But Neewer works with both the Neewer Q series and Godox X series triggers, while the Godox only works with the Godox X series. And then finally, the Neewer has a 3 watt modeling lamp where the Godox has a 5. So even if they were made in the same factory, they are not the same product, even though they clearly share the same marketing team. All right, so should you buy the Neewer Q120? If you want a little extra power and don't mind a slightly larger footprint, I'd say save your money and go with this over the Godox. The light quality is basically identical, and when Neewer runs sales, you can snag it for around $100 less, and well, $100 is $100. Now, if you're an off-camera flash wizard who relies on those compact collapsible softboxes with built-in magnetic mounts, you may want to stick with the Godox for maximum compatibility. From what I've seen, compatibility with the Neewer is hit or miss due to varying flange depths of modifiers. So definitely do your homework before committing. It really comes down to which modifiers matter most to you. If you want to pick up the Q120 from Neewer, the compatible trigger, or the compatible S bracket, I'll leave links in the description below. That does it for today's episode. Have you tried out the Neewer Q120? Did you go with the Godox AD100 Pro 2 instead? Tell me about that in the comments below. Did you go with a different flash strobe? Tell me about that in the comments below. And if you're a fan of this channel, I humbly ask you to click the subscribe button below. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.